Log it exactly as I say it, said Halvran Nook, eyes narrowed at the data streaming across the auxiliary panel. The Theraxis request is premature. That's the word, premature. The analyst didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. In the silence that followed, the 3 Terran delegates around the briefing table stiffened. Not out of fear, but out of awareness. Halvran didn't editorialize. He didn't dramatize. If he said the word was premature, it was because something had tripped the Directorate's internal alarm. Quietly, without sparks or alarms. Just a silent flicker beneath the surface that meant one thing. Someone had moved too soon. The scent of brewed cashew tea still lingered in the corners of the diplomatic vessel's war room, but no one touched their cups anymore. The conference windows displayed Sector Drift 4's newest mining corridor, a bright skeletal scaffold stretching across a gravity-locked mineral belt. The Theraxis had offered to double joint output. Earth had accepted. Mutual gains. Cooperative expansion. It was working, wasn't it? Have they submitted the updated Systems Access Manifest? Asked Commander Vale Soren, his voice low and gravel-coated from too many cycles without rest. Operation Halvran, still studying the uplink without blinking. Line 27 includes a bypass hook for Terran arbitration firewalls. Soren turned his head, slowly. That wasn't in the joint charter. No, Halvran murmured, sliding the authorization slate toward him. It's a request to upgrade shared diagnostics. They're calling it structural harmonization, but what they're asking for is full access parity to our autoresponders, including the ones hard-coded to civilian relief carriers. Soren didn't speak. He simply let his thumb press into the hard polymer edge of the command slate until the edge creaked. The old warship beneath them didn't vibrate or drift. It stayed planted in orbit like an anchored monolith, its artificial gravity wells holding firm. Nothing in the room shook, but something had shifted. "We're not rejecting it?" asked Ordan Pior, the junior logistics liaison seated closest to the mission wall. He looked young. He was young. His voice hadn't lost a lift of curiosity, but it had already picked up the exhaustion of bureaucracy. "No," Soren said, pulling up his command tag. "We'll grant it, with layered monitors." Halvran blinked once. "Sir?" "Let them think they've cracked the gate," Soren said, standing now, his uniform coat straightened along his frame, black trim catching the glow of the wall's tactical display. "And then we'll log every footstep they take inside it." The senior diplomat entered at that moment, Envoy Draith Volin, clad in the ceremonial black and gray layers Earth assigned to high primitive treaty negotiators. He didn't sit. He scanned the room once, acknowledged Halvran with a sharp nod, and walked to the front of the operations table where the tri-signature mineral charter floated, active and waiting. Biometric glyphs shimmered across its surface, one for Earth, one for the Tyraxis, and one for the Intermediary Witness Council. "This is history," Draith said without flourish. 20 systems mined under mutual governance. Output yields projected to increase 9-fold. Arbitration rights locked under joint council. The Drift Pact stands. He pressed his palm against the glyph. The panel acknowledged the seal. Halvran didn't react. Neither did Soren. Outside the vessel, the Theraxis flagship Colin's Reach adjusted its position slightly, settling into equilibrium across the drift. The hull was newer than Earth's ship. Sleek, feathered design, it glimmered with polished hull armor that caught starlight and refracted it like ice. They always preferred aesthetics over redundancy. Ardan turned to Halvran. "You think they've already negotiated with someone else?" Halvran's reply was so soft it nearly didn't register. "I know they've met privately with compact envoys twice in the last 5 cycles. One of those meetings happened without Earth's presence logged." "You're certain?" Soren asked sharply. "I don't speculate, I record." A new alert rolled across the command interface. A second Theraxis delegation had submitted an offer to link their data bridge into Drift 4's central power relay. It was phrased as a failsafe contribution, voluntary, generous, symbolic. It would overwrite Earth's redundancy partition, if approved. Halvran leaned back in his chair and folded his arms. They've begun. Slow. Gentle. Invasive. Do we refuse this time? Pyor asked, his eyes darting toward Soren. No, Halvran answered instead. We let them deploy their sensor ghost. But we feed it what we want it to see, nothing more. Graith tapped the laser plasma display and highlighted a shared system route. We've officially opened borderless mining within the Thalran corridor. All Terran and Thraxis vessels can now traverse the chartered zones without customs scans. It's written. And if they forward that access to a third party? Halvran asked quietly. The envoy didn't answer. He only turned to the signature log, flicked through the annexes and paused at the subclause Halvran had buried 6 cycles ago, the clause labeled Reactive Disengagement Pathways. It had been written as legal redundancy. It wasn't. It was Earth's Severance trigger. On the observation deck 1 level below, technicians logged the first joint transit drill. A Terran supply ship and a Thraxis ore runner initiated orbital sync. From here, the synchronized loop looked perfect. Machinery and intent aligned. But Halvran saw the microsecond delay in the Thraxis ship's ID signature bounce back. It re-queried the Terran codes twice before handshake. Not a technical error. An echo. A check. It was fishing for information not offered. They've built a profile, Halvran muttered, standing now. One that predicts we'll respond either with formality or with delay. And will we? Soren asked, tone unreadable. Halvran turned to face him directly. Neither. We respond without explanation and without negotiation. Understood, Soren replied, moving to the operations panel. I'll prep low-orbit satellites for passive data injection. Pyre shifted nervously. Doesn't this escalate trust tension? Graith finally looked toward him, calm but clipped. This isn't about trust. It's about scaffolding. Pyre frowned. Scaffolding? They're building something, and we need to make sure we can knock it down before they ever climb it. In the silence that followed, Halvran walked back to his station. He opened the primary log. In a box marked Observational Notes, he typed a single word. Premature. Then he sent the file to Earth's Strategic Directorate flagged with high sensitivity clearance, no commentary, no warning, just the word. In the weeks that followed, the Drift Pact spread across networks and systems. News relays celebrated interspecies cooperation. Compact stations praised the Thraxis as new leaders of adaptive diplomacy. Earth was noted in the footnotes. Essential, yes, but spoken of as the cautious partner. The one that moved slower. The one still locked behind administrative checks and careful systems. Halvran watched every broadcast. He never smiled. Not once. Static laces the room like frost. Halvran Noack watches the comm relay screen blink once, then vanish. No transmission. No handshake. No data trail. A complete blackout. Relay 4 is gone, mutters the control technician beside him, barely audible. Just gone. Confirm the last pinged packet, Halvran says flatly, already moving to the backup interface. Subsystem ping recorded at 039. Mark. The technician's fingers freeze above the keys. Payload content. Empty. Halvran doesn't reply. He doesn't look at anyone. His right hand lifts slowly, taps the encoded bypass, and brings up Drift4's orbital flow. On screen, Earth's arbitration freighter TTSS Vorit spins. In place near the exchange platform. Its orientation is wrong. Docking clamps unresponsive. Power grid misaligned. And directly across from it, the Thraxis courier vessel once meant to deliver mineral output is broadcasting compact authority codes. He stares. Then closes the feed. Down on the station's logistics bay, Soren's voice slams through the command line audio. Ground team, back away from the platform. We've got unauthorized relay interference. Cut uplink now. The overhead lights dim for a breath too long. Systems cross-check and reinitialize. But when the monitors return, Earth's half of the station charter has vanished. Literally deleted. The Drift Treaty Charter, now visible only through Thraxis and compact credentials, Lists full mineral rights under economic reassignment doctrine. A scrawling subnote appears under it. Earth states, limited access granted procluded obsolum. Halvoran opens his private terminal, types 3 letters, saves the note. He does not lift his head when behind him the corridor door slams open. Wraith Vulan enters, breathing through clenched teeth, eyes already scanning for updates. His robes look heavier now, less ceremonial, more burdened. Ebel just erased our claim, Soren says through the shared link, pacing on the lower deck. We had full arbitration command 5 hours ago. Kyle declared the override legal under Compact Intervention Clause. Draith replies, voice stone dry. Death Clause applies to failing systems, not active ones, Pyor argues, the weight of disbelief cracking through his tone. They've redefined active. Draith brings up the Tribunal logs. Retroactively, Halvoran finally speaks. There was no meeting scheduled. Lee didn't need one. It's already logged as approved by emergency consensus vote. Third Axis handed them a motion at 0 hour. Compact ratified it in under 10 minutes. And Earth, Soren demands? We were marked absent. Soren's eyes drift to the operations wall. We never left. No, Halvoran mutters. They just removed us from the map. Outside the bay, the drift sector changes. Earth's escort frigates, long orbiting neutral positions, receive internal software faults. Not from external attack, from inside. Auto updates overridden through codes Earth never released. One by one, they deactivate uplink engines and power down targeting systems. No explosions, no shots, just disconnect. On the decks of TSS Vorath, Commander Revik stands frozen as his primary systems cascade into failure. He opens a direct line to Terran Command. Receives static. Tries again. A message flickers into life across the overhead display. Iconic realignment in effect. You are no longer needed. Revik's knuckles turn white around the bulkhead rail. This is deliberate. On the orbital council station, Compact Overseer Tharn Vel steps onto the public platform, flanked by Thyaxis diplomats. Cameras activate. Streams begin. He speaks without blinking. The Earth delegation has maintained outdated structures that no longer reflect economic demands. The realignment provides necessary evolution toward shared abundance. This is not betrayal, it is correction. Correction? Pyor snaps, nearly stumbling forward. They hijacked our systems, reflagged our freighters, and buried our relay nodes. Deeply did it without raising a weapon, Halvoran says coldly. And that's supposed to make it better? Eth. Halvoran looks at him. No. It makes it legal. Pyre swallows hard. What do we do now? Soren speaks calmly. We don't react here. We consolidate, pull back from visible lanes, shift everything internal. Draith closes the broadcast feed. His hands shake, barely. We go home? No, Halvoran says, standing. We make home unreachable. Across the drift, Earth's remaining constructs begin shutting down. Transit beacons switch to dormant. Storage banks purge. Orbital nodes vanish behind non-resolvable encryption. Like limbs being retracted. No messages sent. No explanations offered. On the thoracic side, celebration is measured, controlled, but present. Their operatives beam congratulations across Compact canals. Compact leadership issues full dominion claims over 3 core systems. Their news feeds play clips of Compact ships docking at former Earth-controlled stations, welcomed with smiles. In Earth's Directorate Tower, Halvoran uploads his field notes. No summary, no extrapolation, just a 6-word entry. Treaty broken via compliance misdirection. The system asks if he wants to attach commentary. He types, noted. The word hangs on his screen for a moment, then disappears into the Directorate's classified terminal chain. Within 3 hours, all Terran embassy personnel are recalled from Compact jurisdiction. Earth's diplomats offer no final statements. Just a digital key deactivation and a single forwarded packet to the council chair's terminal. It reads, "This charter has been invalidated by signatory manipulation. Earth retains internal integrity. External engagement withdrawn indefinitely." The compact offers no reply. Back on Drift Station IV, a lone technician records the visual feed from Earth's half of the docking bay. The Treaty Stone, the symbolic monument marking the formation of the pact, sits under flickering overhead lights. Thoracics workers, in silent ceremony, unlock the base bracket, lift the stone from its mount, and place it onto a hoverlift unit. The symbol of unity is wheeled away, past Earth's darkened gates, into the thoracics sector. On the archive footage, the entry logs it under a new category: historical artifact no longer in use. There is no music, no commentary, just the sound of automated doors sealing behind it. The message reached Halvern Noak inside a secure archive chamber beneath Terran Administrative Node C9. No lights blinked, no sirens blared. The terminal screen blinked once, then cleared. One file, one header, Delphi execute no replay. The cursor did not pulse, it waited. So did he. Halvern stood. The chill of the concrete beneath his boots bled upward through the soles, grounding him in the silence that now defined Earth's posture. He scanned the attached list. Hundreds of operatives embedded across diplomatic, commercial, and technological sectors. Each name, each location already marked with a recall timestamp. Not a single unit left behind. He tapped the terminal's key in confirmation. Across 12 compact-administered jurisdictions, Terran personnel began disappearing. No goodbyes, no statements, no explanations. They vacated positions, storage sites, and data hubs, leaving behind wiped drives and deactivated nodes. At the embassy in Kalen Reach, a Thyraxis diplomat tried to hail the resident administrator. Finding the office dark, furniture disassembled, walls scrubbed to bare composites, a single instruction card sat on the abandoned desk. Lease concluded. Territory withdrawn. Contact no longer available. In orbit above the mining corridor, Earth's logistics satellites pulsed their final signals, then silence. The Thyraxis control grid, now forcibly reconfigured under compact standards, reached out for Terran navigation subnets, only to be met with cascading failures. Automated routes turned blank. Fabrication units stopped mid-cycle, starving refineries of power instructions. Civilian traffic rerouted itself into fragmented loops, consuming fuel without reaching destinations. Soren watched from the operations core beneath Earth's Skyforge command. His knuckles tapped the interface panel. Not in frustration, but to time the staggered sequence of contract lock activations. With every press, a compact link protocol vanished. One after another. Embedded systems disconnected, energy grids blinked, sensor fields decommissioned. The Thyraxis used 38 Terran licenses to run their defense lattice, Halvern said from the adjacent panel. They never questioned why the upgrade keys never changed. Soren didn't smile. Because they thought, we'd never close the gate. A distant clang echoed through the chamber as magnetic locks shifted across the facility. Final confirmation of the lockdown. Farther out, at the edge of the Delvar corridor, a freighter convoy tagged as civilian mineral outbound found itself cut off mid-jump. Its onboard AI, written by Terran subcontractors, defaulted to standby when the verification chain failed. The convoy drifted, not due to sabotage, but because the fuel rations were never programmed to replenish without Earth's back-end codes. Back on Drift Station 5, Thyraxis engineers panicked. Control panels, once reading stable, now streamed with erratic telemetry. Cargo tracking failed to validate ownership. Repair drones locked themselves in idle loops. No adversary jammed them. Nothing was hacked. The systems simply stopped trusting them. In the compact council chamber, Overseer Vel slammed a data slate into the edge of the table. "We paid licensing for these transit algorithms. How are they rejecting authentication?" An aide responded, hesitant. "The override systems appear to be self-governing, written to require an Earth origin token every 90 hours. We were never given access to that requirement." "No," the aide said. That was buried under a private submission, Condition K31, bound by the originator's jurisdiction. Val stared at the screen. Earth had programmed every interaction to be reversible, by them and only them. He turned to the communications director. Summon a tribunal vote. I want Earth sanctioned for breach of shared infrastructure. The tribunal met. 6 delegates submitted complaints. Earth declined to appear. 2 days later, the Interstellar Concord Legal Bureau submitted a formal grievance to Earth's directorate. The reply arrived exactly 13 seconds later. Clause 7E permits full service cessation in the event of charter reclassification. Earth's standing remains consistent. You altered yours. No further contact followed. At Outpost Helnar, compact supply ships queued to refuel. The station's fueling arm, built with Terran auto-calibration modules, rejected handshake. A backup station attempted emergency override. Its interface rebooted mid-second, flashed a warning across all systems. Unauthorized input detected, source compromised. The entire fueling scaffold retracted into hibernation mode. The dockmaster screamed into his headset, demanding an explanation. His staff gave none. They were too busy trying to override food distribution protocols now, failing to recognize delivery units. At the Raxus Medical Hub in Axe, civilian hospitals running shared biostabilization systems abruptly reverted to default settings. Their machines displayed foreign character sets. The caretakers couldn't read them. Emergency cases were rerouted by necessity, not choice. Earth did not fire a single round. But across 5 sectors, systems convulsed. Inside the directorate chamber on Earth, Halvren addressed the oversight panel. We warned them when they asked for parity. They called it harmonization. We logged the risk. They signed anyway. One delegate asked, "Can they recover the systems?" Halvren replied, "Not without the keys. Can they rebuild?" "Eventually. But by then they'll have rewritten everything just to avoid dependence." "That's not a reset. That's collapse." Soren stepped forward, dropping a folder onto the center table. Inside, a compiled list of compact ships missing from registry. Unreported reroutes, unsignaled destinations, and civilian resource convoys never arriving. "They're not just stalled," Soren said. "They're scattered, and they don't even know who to blame yet." One official asked, "What if they accuse us of economic warfare?" Halvern didn't look up. "We haven't waged war. We've withdrawn cooperation. They can't tell the difference." And in the embassies Earth left behind, dust began to gather. A compact newsfeed ran a segment the following week, showing an abandoned Terran data center. The camera panned across empty desks, wiped terminals, and one large black screen bearing a frozen message. "Thank you for your time." The reporter ended the piece by suggesting Earth had suffered a failure of nerve. Halvern saw it, said nothing. Instead, he opened his field log and keyed in a new entry. "Silence requested, silence delivered." He hit send, then shut off the terminal. The first activation report came from Sector L412. A listening post operated by the independent Yorn Collective flagged a gravitational anomaly in an unmarked drift channel. No distress beacon, no transmission handshake. Just a sudden emergence of artificial mass where there had been none. The post's lead technician, a former compact cartographer named Dren Halvek, triangulated the signal origin. The readings weren't standard. The beacon didn't transmit identity, origin, or destination codes. It simply broadcast one phrase on loop. "Tracking initiated, V-index ready." By the time Halvek attempted a second scan, the signal collapsed into lockdown. Every attempt to rebroadcast the frequency failed. Minutes later, 5 other independent stations across disconnected sectors logged identical anomalies. Same message, same shutdown, same dead location markers. No authority took credit, no traffic claims filed, just the reappearance of 6 Terran-coded tracking signals in sectors long abandoned by Earth. Compact Central Relay Command labeled it a navigational glitch, a software echo from old relay debris. but they dispatched 3 scout ships from Elton Fleet just to verify. Only one returned. The surviving pilot's report, declassified after internal pressure from Thraxis coalition members, described an encounter without visuals, just a blank corridor of space, and then disappearance of signal feed. His onboard systems dimmed, energy readouts fell to 0, secondary backups never triggered. His vessel drifted inert for 28 minutes before a sudden cold restart pushed him back into routing range. He couldn't identify what caused the failure, but his last scan caught the edge of a silhouette, massive, irregular, moving without registered propulsion. The council dismissed the report as unreliable. He was reassigned and silenced. But rumors spread. At a compact port in Carth Nexus, merchant convoys began adjusting routes, not through official orders but internal risk protocols. Independent freighter logs listed Vindex flag, unconfirmed presence in outbound manifests. Traders whispered that Earth had never dismantled its deep fleet, that it had only moved it where eyes couldn't follow. A retired Thraxis captain, Bren Hauken, received a transmission from a former command partner. Encrypted with an old Earth Thraxis treaty key, the message bore no greeting, only coordinates and a timestamp. He took his own vessel, against regulation, to one of the listed zones. What he found wasn't a fleet. It was a formation. Dozens of structures, aligned without signal, drifted between moons like they were waiting for permission to begin. They didn't move. They didn't ping. Their hulls bore no identifiers, no logos, no colors, no nation tags. But every outline was familiar. He returned without landing, and when he was questioned by compact analysts, he said one thing: "This isn't a deployment, it's a warning." He left the council chambers before they finished debriefing. 2 days later, a supply carrier transporting mineral stock through Corridor 9T was rerouted. The pilot received an untraceable ping UT mark, monochrome, carrying only 3 words in Terran Standard. "You are seen." He reversed course without instruction. The freighter's tracking path was sealed by his crew without external orders. They did not discuss it. Not with their superiors, not with their network. Meanwhile, Earth remained quiet. No media statements, no military briefs. The Directorate released no footage, no official positions. Terran traffic through Allied channels remained low. But across the edges of Council-tracked space, orbital telemetry began reporting odd drift patterns. Ships locked in symmetric stasis near low-activity gravity bands. Unaffiliated, unspeaking. A compact military analyst submitted a private dossier to the Command Council titled "Triangulated Ghost Positions, Strategic Silent Encirclement." His theory: the Vindex fleet was reactivating its command lattice, not to engage, but to frame, to surround, to make clear that Earth wasn't retaliating. It was drawing a boundary. The document was shelved. In Drift 4, the Thraxis engineers returned to what had been Earth's final orbital relay station. It had gone cold 2 cycles prior. They approached in unmarked repair craft, hoping to scavenge viable equipment. The docking clamps failed to engage. Every time they approached within 100 meters, their navigational AI would spin up emergency reroute commands. Not through warnings, but through terrain redesignation. The beacon had rewritten local space. Without firing, without interference, Earth had redefined the approach vector as unsafe. The Thraxis command rerouted the engineers again. Their final update was brief. Station reads dormant. Local space is claimed. Beacon is live, awaiting input. The message never resolved. The team was declared unresponsive 2 days later. Within the Compact's internal security division, low-priority threat assessments were revised upward. The report headings changed. What had once read tactical silence, observation only, now read preliminary siege structure. But they couldn't prove it. And the more they tried to explain it publicly, the more fragmented their control appeared. Civilian traffic dropped. Independent trade authorities placed Terran-adjacent sectors under provisional blacklisting. Nobody wanted to be first into a corridor Earth had marked. They remembered too well what happened the last time Earth spoke softly. One council member finally broke silence during a closed tribunal session. He held up a star map, drew a hexagon connecting the 6 known signal activations. "This is an encirclement," a junior analyst corrected him. "With all due respect, that's not an encirclement, sir. That's a quarantine." The silence afterward wasn't fear. It was the realization that someone else had defined the borders first. And they hadn't even needed to say why. 2. Compact supply convoys stalled in the Mardak Run. Pilots screamed over short-range bands begging for route updates. Their AI navigation suites weren't answering. Maps had vanished mid-burn, overridden by blank sectors labeled UN Resolved Routing. The supply carriers hovered inside null corridors, boxed in by null corridors. Chief Hyol Revik struck the helm with the side of his hand. "Request drift recalibration again. Force override." His first officer replied without turning. "There's no override left. The logic gate's been wiped clean." Elsewhere, in the Verdos cluster, a compact civilian medical courier drifted off course. Its oxygen treatment cargo was tagged for 3 colony habitats. Midway through its descent, the support vessel rerouted itself into a non-designated spiral, moving deeper into dead space. By the time the onboard crew recognized the deviation, their onboard autopilot had disabled manual command, responding instead to a relay pulse that hadn't originated from any registered Terran station. Their last transmission was fragmented, half a sentence, clipped and stuttering. Primary channel hijacked, coordinates wrong, transmission looped, then static. In the Compact's central relay hub, Director Jin Vowles received the preliminary failure logs. The data sheets weren't corrupted, they were complete, but useless. Route markers replaced by blank flags, shipping manifests rewritten to loop on themselves, even search functions returned only one system tag, path closed by external handler. He narrowed his eyes at the phrase. "What handler?" he asked. The technician didn't answer right away. "Repeat that," Vowles said, rising from his console. "There's no system attached. The code reads as Terran copyword, but it's anonymized. There's no trace line, and every rerouted unit lists the same redirect response." "Read it." The technician cleared his throat. "Authority not recognized." In Drift Sector 3, oxygen distribution plants began receiving erratic power. Colony officials blamed outdated reactors. Maintenance crews tore apart installation strips and cable nests, trying to isolate the fault. But every time they thought they'd reset the system, a new glitch appeared. Pumps that ran smooth before now clicked in strange sequences. The error logs didn't suggest failure. They were simply silent, no response, as if the infrastructure had stopped caring. Chief Coordinator Thask Morrill of Colony Helidon entered the emergency control room barefoot, covered in coolant from the failed filtration chamber. "We can't hold another 3 days at half cycle," he said, eyes bloodshot. "We need immediate support from Yeldon orbit." The systems officer didn't meet his gaze. "They're not responding." "They're offline. Transit routes were delisted. Routing systems pinged back invalid." "Invalid?" Thask echoed. "We built that port with Earth's advisors. Their codebase ran the whole loop." Silence passed between them. Then a young engineer at the back of the room leaned forward. "We didn't build it with Earth," he said. "We built it on Earth." On Cradon V, a compact medical facility watched its surgical drone array seize mid-separation. Patients in stasis began waking due to cascade shutdowns in neurosuppression algorithms. Nurses yanked out hardware ports manually, eyes wet, hands shaking. No attacker had fired. No rebel faction had seized power. This wasn't a takeover. This was removal. Of trust, of access, of functionality. Like the walls had stopped listening. In the outer fringe of Compact's jurisdiction, a drone transport ferrying rations looped into a spin after its vector AI failed to receive docking code from its home relay. It continued orbiting a barren rock without deceleration. Other ships witnessed the drift, but no vessel approached. Its lights flickered in irregular intervals. It broadcast nothing but null data. A repeating cascade of zeros, and a shuttered systems report. No one wanted to admit what it meant. Earth hadn't disrupted their war machines. It had made the supply chain bleed from its own blind spots. Back on Earth, Commander Jorvan Malric stood inside the silent Tier 7 operations vault beneath the former Arbitration Council chamber. A wall of inactive interfaces blinked to life one by one, each displaying failed compact protocol executions in real time. 36 systems had gone dark. Another 17 were in reroute loops. Not one required intervention. These weren't counterattacks, they were failsafes, designed not for war, but for silence. "Confirm Vindex passkey integrity," he said. A junior strategist responded. "Intact. Every closed channel reports full lockdown. Keep them closed." Director Halvern Noak entered through the far corridor, dusted with wind grit from Earth's surface blast vents. He removed his coat, folded it once, and placed it on the side panel before speaking. "We routed half their medical logistics into incorrect sectors. They'll chase ghosts until they rewrite the whole infrastructure." Malric nodded. "Any response?" "None worth quoting. One diplomatic request, one offer to negotiate territory." Malric raised an eyebrow. "They want their relay permissions reinstated." "What did you tell them?" "I didn't." A few minutes passed. One technician called out across the room. "New broadcast from the Council. Sector 7. Civil unrest reports from their own colony officials. Air filtration failing. Medical shortages confirmed." Malric folded his hands behind his back. "This isn't vengeance," Halvern said. "No," Malric replied. "It's subtraction. Do we proceed with Stage 2? Malric shook his head. "We don't need another stage. Let their systems collapse under their own weight." Across the Compact's council hall, internal debates flared. Accusations flew between department heads. Some claimed Earth had violated neutral engagement laws. Others pointed out no official declaration had ever been issued. There were no strikes, no fleets, only systems turning their backs one component at a time. One counselor slammed her hand on the table. "Why aren't they answering?" Another answered without lifting his eyes. "Because they already answered, they just didn't speak." In Helidon Colony, inside a corridor lit only by handheld emergency lights, a nurse sat beside a child's stasis pod, watching the oxygen level count down on a dying monitor. The system offered no bypass, no emergency override, just a cold, flashing indicator that read, "Maintaining verification token not found." The nurse pressed her forehead to the glass. She didn't cry until the numbers reached 1. The next day, a Compact ambassador broadcast a direct appeal across all frequencies. His voice cracked halfway through. "To whoever's listening, Earth, please respond." They heard nothing back. The chamber inside Hesteron Node was a steel-faced echo chamber wrapped in dignity it no longer deserved. Murals of unified species stood behind the tribunal bench, lit by white ceiling strips flickering under overworked power converters. Representatives from the Compact and Thyraxis sat arranged in semicircles, trying to mask fatigue with protocol. Counselor Vez Toll adjusted his robe sleeve and motioned for quiet. "This emergency tribunal has been convened under Compact, Article 17, for resolution on Terran retaliation deemed disproportionate. We expect dialogue." He looked out at the wall-sized display. Earth's slot was dark, no signal yet. The room's heat control was failing. Diplomats wiped at brows and shifted in their seats. From the rear, aides exchanged nervous glances. No one said it, but they all felt it. They were trying to explain betrayal to the ones who'd built the system. The wall lit up. Static gave way to crisp resolution. No council seal, no banner, just a live feed from low orbit. Vindex Fleet Command Bridge. Commander Jorvan Malric stood alone, facing forward, uniform unmarred, voice already mid-sentence, as if they'd tuned in too late. Signed under the Joint Charter of Mineral Mutuality, Line 62. All arbitration disputes must be brought to witness quorum within 48 hours of occurrence. Earth presented its claim. No quorum was formed. He spoke without salutation. No acknowledgement of the tribunal, just the treaty. Line 74. All defensive support structures placed under Terran custody shall remain sovereign property until dissolved by trilateral agreement. Dissolution never occurred. Control was taken, without negotiation. Malric's tone was exacting. Each phrase struck like a diagnostic report, clean, confirmed, irreversible. The delegates began to shift. Some whispered. One Thuraxis officer tapped his console, trying to verify the citations. Malric continued, unfazed. Line 81, violation of relay neutrality by third-party command invalidates shared system rights. Compact override of drift, Relay 5, qualifies under clause review. He paused for a moment, then shifted his gaze. His voice dropped half a register. Line 95. Casualties incurred during a breach of shared treaty space, civilian or military, shall be logged for mutual audit and penalty arbitration. The wall behind him changed. Names appeared, columns of them. Ship identifiers. Crew tags. Civilian medical personnel. Names from the drift. Names from detached convoys. Names from outposts Earth had refused to disclose, now shown. Malak did not blink. 2,436 Terran lives. Counselor Thole stood, shaking. This tribunal was not called to. Malric spoke over him. You called this session to redefine the breach. I am here to remind you it is already defined. He stepped aside. The feed shifted again. It now displayed a feed from Earth's Directorate Tower. A single frame, the tri-signature treaty, marked void. With an authorization code logged at the moment, Compact Forces reclassified Earth's arbitration jurisdiction. That timestamp matched the minute Earth began retracting its personnel. One Thuraxis administrator tried to interrupt. We acted within legal interpretation. You interpreted while men died, Malric said. The chamber quieted again. I will not debate, I will not reason with your miscalculations. He lifted a tablet from the podium. I am here to deliver a statement, not as diplomat, not as soldier, as custodian of a record you broke. He tapped once. The treaty document projected behind him glitched, one final flicker, then froze, mid-scrabble. The screen split, one side locked on Clause 95, the other displayed the casualty toll beneath it. Malric raised his eyes again. Earth doesn't negotiate consequence. The lights in the tribunal hall surged. Some screens crackled. A distant transformer in the floor beneath groaned under strain. Malric didn't move. Our response is not destruction, it is conclusion. He stepped back. The signal faded. The screen cut to black. In the tribunal hall, several consoles began shutting down. The primary command display for compact asset tracking blinked once, then failed. Delegates scrambled for alternate channels. Most received only a system prompt. Connection severed. Host, unacknowledged. The lighting system flickered. The central power bar above the tribunal podium blinked once. Then, extinguished entirely. The room remained lit only by auxiliary wall units. The delegates looked around, many rising from their seats, speaking over each other, demanding reconnection, demanding access to system logs. Aides whispered frantic requests into disabled earpieces. Backup protocols wouldn't load. In the middle row, the Thuraxis defense attaché closed his terminal slowly. We didn't just lose the argument, he said aloud. We lost the floor. His words spread through the chamber faster than the technicians could respond. On the central podium, Counselor Vez Thol leaned forward, trying to activate his station override. The panel wouldn't respond. This isn't theater, he muttered. It's removal. One compact communications officer looked down at her auxiliary console. An error message blinked across her screen. Earth has terminated your channel. No return prompt, no dispute form, no appeal route. A counselor turned toward her. Try civilian lines. Relay the event. She shook her head. The relay's dead. In the control center beneath Hestron Node, security analysts attempted to contact Earth's orbital footprint. Nothing responded. They tried alternate frequencies, proxy routers, parallel loopbacks. Each time, they received a blank return field. Outside the tribunal chamber, local compact citizens began reporting feed disruptions. Public broadcasts froze mid-sentence. The final image held on Malric's face before dissolving. No one claimed interference. No evidence of jamming appeared. All systems, per diagnostic, were intact. But nothing moved. Back in the chamber, a silence held not from shock but realization. They hadn't been attacked. They'd been shut out. Counselor Vez-Toll closed his file slowly, his fingers trembling. "We held the hearing to restore order," he said. "They used it to end relevance." No one argued. The last Theraxis marshal left standing shouted into an unresponsive console, slamming his fist hard enough to crack the casing. Behind him, aides scrambled across the floor, dragging crates of auxiliary batteries that wouldn't lock into the station's grid. Every command sent returned in silence. Not an error, not a denial, just no reply at all. One of the aides collapsed against the wall, breathing through his teeth. "Are we under attack?" The marshal turned slowly. His face was drenched in sweat, but not from heat. "No. We've already been dismantled." Across the sector, Earth's ships didn't fire. They didn't threaten. They drifted into position with deliberate grace, no escorts, no broadcast. When the first Terran vessel passed above the command nexus of Larthen Outpost, no alarms triggered. But the lights dimmed, doors locked, targeting systems cycled once, then went dark. Personnel sprinted to backup controls, only to find that they didn't respond. Not jammed, just ignored. One of the watch officers ran to the upper deck. "The override key isn't working. None of our command tags are registering." "They haven't taken the station," someone muttered from a corner. "They've just canceled it." On the surface of Delvin, a mining governor stared at the sky. The silhouette of a Terran ship cast a line across the dusk. He lowered his binoculars, breathing carefully through his nose. "They've blacked out the relay net," his deputy whispered. "None of the other colonies are answering." "They're not meant to," the governor said. "They're being erased, one link at a time." In Jarnes, military command staff boarded escape shuttles. Engines flared. The ships rose just high enough to clear atmosphere before stalling. Their pathfinding systems refused to acknowledge any safe exit vector. Not scrambled, not damaged, just lost. No heading available, no direction left to follow. Inside one of the drifting escape pods, Admiral Ratan Vara gripped his seat's armrest until the leather tore under his hand. The viewport showed a line of stars and a Terran dreadnought stationed in stillness, like a monument to patience. "They're not chasing us," he muttered. "They're watching us drift." At the diplomatic station above Theldra, Theraxis and compact envoys gathered for what they claimed would be a response summit. It didn't last 20 minutes. The power in the broadcast hall flickered once. The translators stuttered. The hall screens reset to static. Doors stayed closed, not sealed, just disabled. Nobody left, nobody entered. The station's command staff tried every known protocol. No warnings arrived, no terms were issued. What failed wasn't a system, but the idea that they were in charge. In the lower corridor, a junior translator leaned her forehead against the wall. "What does this mean?" someone asked her. She didn't lift her head. "It means we don't get to speak anymore." In 3 sectors, compact fleet officers launched manual recon to scan for Terran deployments. The recon vessels never returned. They weren't destroyed. They simply vanished from tracking. No beacons, no signal trail. The command towers marked them missing, but couldn't issue retrieval orders. There was no system left to obey them. On the floor of Laskin Hall, a Theraxis politician dropped his datapad. It didn't break. It just kept flashing a single error, its authorization tag looping with no destination. Across the room, a guard slumped against the wall and whispered to no one in particular. "They've done something worse than destroy us." The counselor turned. "What's worse than that? They've made us irrelevant." At Earth's forward command bridge, Commander Yervin Malric stood at the observation frame, silent, eyes locked on a display showing 13 sectors. not in flames, but in stasis. Everything had been frozen, disarmed, decoupled from meaning. He didn't give another order. There were no orders left to give. Execution was complete. Back on the edge of Yethri space, one final compact outpost issued a live transmission. The message was transmitted across known diplomatic channels. The voice on the recording broke twice. His hands shook as he stared into the feed, lips barely moving. "We yield, please respond. Please. Anyone from Earth? We acknowledge what happened. The signal died before the rest could be spoken. In the silence that followed, Earth gave no answer. None was necessary. The fleet remained visible, still, waiting, not to destroy anything further, just to remind them what had already been taken. The final compact announcement came without ceremony. A single counselor stepped up to a podium in a dimly lit chamber once meant for declarations of galactic unity. No flags behind him, no press corps present, just a cracked podium mic and a statement. Effective immediately, the compact terminates all charter cooperation with the Theraxis Coalition. All treaties with Earth are void. All occupied sectors, discontinued. He didn't wait for applause. There was none. On the screens lining the outer rim of the council floor, a scrolling ticker showed system names being pulled off diplomatic records. Not deleted, just grayed out. Drift 4, once a shared cornerstone of interstellar progress, was now listed as retired. Status abandoned. Inside the same room, a clerk sat quietly beside the Tribunal ledger. He didn't type. He transcribed by hand. The feed was being archived for internal record, though it would never be shown publicly again. In the margin of his final entry, he scribbled something not in the official transcript. Earth never bargains with betrayers. The pen didn't shake. He didn't hesitate. He just nodded once, then closed the file. Above what used to be the active sectors, the Vindex fleet remained where it had been for weeks. Staggered in tight formation, lights on, engines dormant. Every craft maintained its position to the meter, not drifting, not maneuvering. Multiple Theraxis attempts to contact the fleet went unanswered. Emergency diplomatic envoys were denied permission to enter Earth monitor corridors. Not rejected, just denied routing, validation. The implication was clear. Earth had nothing further to say. On the edges of the former negotiation belt, unaffiliated trade groups began redrawing their own maps. Earth didn't issue threats. It didn't annex territories. It didn't open embassies. But those sectors, though untouched, were marked with unofficial warnings passed between traders, scouts, and portmasters. If it's near Earth's fleet, don't linger. Economic planners from the Council tried to recover. They issued new contracts. They attempted to rewrite infrastructure control under open market initiatives. But their platforms relied on frameworks that no longer operated without Terran authentication. No matter how many backups they uploaded, the scaffolding was corrupted. Earth had built it with them, and left no keys behind. On Drift 4, the control station lights were still on. Every corridor clean, storage rooms intact. Terran personnel had exited without taking a single item. It was as if the place had been preserved, frozen at the moment Earth had decided it no longer held value. A Theraxis reconnaissance team landed without clearance. They walked the halls cautiously, avoiding eye contact with each other. In the command chamber, they found the original treaty stone, still sealed in its protective casing, untouched since the signing. One officer spoke without turning. They didn't remove it. His partner replied, "Why would they need to? It doesn't bind them anymore." Behind them, a quiet mechanical tone echoed from the central console. It wasn't a warning, it was a maintenance cycle. Cleaning subroutines, keeping the facility operational without command. Terran infrastructure didn't rot. It simply ignored unauthorized users. Elsewhere, compact leadership met behind closed doors. They debated how to re-establish balance. Some proposed offering concessions. Others wanted to launch a goodwill campaign. But every suggestion circled back to the same obstacle. Earth had already ended the conversation. At Earth's orbital relay, Commander Malric stood alone on the bridge of his lead vessel, arms crossed behind his back. No orders issued, no transmissions sent. He simply watched. From this distance, every former Allied route looked quiet. Not ruined, just irrelevant. Director Halvran Noak entered without announcement. His coat bore the markings of internal intelligence, rather than fleet command. "They're rerouting food shipments again," Halvran said, standing beside him. "They'll find the corridors closed. Still think they'll try to negotiate?" Malric shook his head. "No. They'll convince themselves we're waiting to be convinced." "Are we?" "We've already acted, they just haven't caught up." Halvran turned, folding his hands behind his back. "The clerk at the Tribunal copied your words." Malric raised a brow. "Which ones?" Halvran's voice was flat. "Earth never bargains with betrayers." "He wrote it in the margin." Malric nodded slowly. "That wasn't doctrine, that was fact." On the surface of Earth, civil infrastructure moved on. Children played beneath reinforced shuttle towers. Engineers tested wind resonance in reclaimed orbital wind farms. The Directorate did not celebrate victory. They issued updates, refined protocols, rebuilt trade schedules with unaffiliated colonies. Quietly, no monuments, no fanfare. The galaxy, meanwhile, whispered. Independent factions began inserting clauses into their diplomatic proposals, voluntarily restricting actions that might threaten Earth's interest, not from fear of attack, but to avoid disappearance. Not one system wanted to be rewritten. Compact broadcasters debated for weeks over what to call the incident. Silent retaliation, the Terran audit, the Echo quarantine. None of them stuck. None of them mattered. The last update to the Interstellar Charter Registry simply flagged Earth's page with a new status. Closed system, unavailable for contact. No appeal option existed. The form field for requests had been removed. Back on Hesteran Node, the same clerk returned days later to file closing statements. The chamber still smelled of iron dust from the emergency power lines. He sat at the same terminal and added the final annotation to the case file. Drift assets remain untouched. Earth claims nothing. He stared at the screen for a long time before typing the last line. But nothing moves unless they permit it now. He locked the file, stood, and left without logging out. No alarms rang, no lights changed. The system simply accepted that Earth's chapter had ended. And the galaxy learned that silence, when it comes from Earth, isn't absence. It's final.